There are some women the world will never understand. She walks into a room and something shifts. Not because of how she looks, not because of how she dresses, but because of what she carries. There is a weight on her life, a mark on her soul, a fragrance in her presence. She doesn't try to shine, she just does. And it confuses people. It intimidates some. It draws others. But most of the time, it isolates her. Because chosen women are not like the rest. They don't fit in. They don't blend in. They don't follow trends, and they don't chase validation. They live with a knowing, a deep, quiet, sacred knowing. I was made for more, even if they don't have the words for it, even if they can't explain it, even if they've never spoken it aloud. It's there. It's always been there. From childhood, from pain, from prayers whispered in the dark, from dreams they couldn't shake, from battles they never asked for, but somehow survived. They don't walk like victims. They walk like vessels, not empty, not full of self, but carried, held, sent. And let me tell you something, that kind of woman doesn't just happen. She is not born from comfort. She is not shaped by applause. She is not made in the light. She is formed in the fire, built in the dark, tested in silence, refined in rejection. She doesn't talk much about what she's been through, but if you knew the weight she's carried, if you saw the night she's cried, if you felt the pressure she survived, you'd understand why she walks the way she does. There is oil on her life. But oil only comes from crushing. There is wisdom in her words, but wisdom only comes from wounds. There is authority in her silence, but that authority was paid for in hidden battles. She is not ordinary, and she knows it, not with arrogance, but with reverence. She's not trying to be seen. She's trying to obey. She's not trying to impress. She's trying to survive. She's not trying to prove anything. She's trying to protect what God has placed inside her, because when you're chosen, you don't live for applause. You live under assignment. And that assignment comes with marks, invisible ones, painful ones, holy ones. They're not on her skin. They're not in her resume. They're not in her titles. They're in her spirit. They're in her choices. They're in her journey. And these marks, they are not for show. They are for preparation. They are for protection. They are for power. So if you felt different, if you felt out of place, if you've asked God, why am I like this? Why don't I fit where others do? You may be marked. You may be chosen. You may be hidden for now. And over the next few moments, I want to show you something, not to impress you, not to inspire you, but to confirm what your spirit already knows, that there is more, that there is purpose in the pain, that there is a call behind the silence, and that you were never meant to blend in because you were born to stand apart. But before you rise, you must understand the marks. And the first one? It starts deep within, before anyone else ever sees it. The first mark of a chosen woman is this: she is different, deeply, quietly, unshakably different, but not in the way the world celebrates, not loud, not flashy, not defiant. No, her difference is quieter than that. It shows up in what bothers her, in what breaks her heart, in what never satisfies her, no matter how much the world insists it should. She's the one who walks into a room and immediately feels the tension no one else sees. She hears what others ignore. She senses what others dismiss. She carries a discernment she didn't ask for but can't turn off. Even as a child, she knew. She couldn't explain it, but she knew. She wasn't wired like everyone else. She didn't find joy in what others celebrated. She didn't chase what others ran after. She didn't laugh at what they called funny. She didn't feel safe in crowds that felt like home to others. It wasn't pride. It wasn't fear. It was difference. And that difference, it came from God. Because chosen women are marked early. Before the crown ever rests on their head, there's a discomfort in their spirit. They're not rebellious. They're set apart. They're not antisocial. They're being sanctified. They're not bitter. They're being built. But the world doesn't understand this difference, so they call her distant, too serious, too deep, too intense. They say you're too sensitive. You think too much. You take everything to heart. And she starts to wonder, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal? But nothing's wrong. She's not broken. She's not behind. She's not lost. She's marked. God has placed something inside her that can't be explained because it was never meant to fit in. It was meant to set her apart. Because when God chooses someone, He first begins by pulling them away, not to punish, but to prepare. He makes the familiar uncomfortable. He makes the crowd confusing. He makes the old patterns feel empty because He's getting ready to do a new thing in her life, and new things require new soil. So if you've been feeling out of place, if you've been wondering why nothing satisfies you anymore, if you've been trying to reconnect to things that used to feel like home, but they don't anymore, you're not going backward. You're being repositioned. God is shifting you. God is stretching you. God is calling you deeper, because before He ever uses a woman publicly, He marks her privately. And that mark starts with a holy discomfort, a knowing that you can't stay where you were, a restless ache that whispers, you were made for something more. But with that ache comes something heavier, something no one sees, something no one claps for, something that doesn't look like favor but is. It's the second mark, and it rarely comes without a fight. The second mark of a chosen woman is this: she carries a weight no one else can see. Not physical, not emotional, spiritual. There's a battle on her life. One that doesn't show up in the natural, one that doesn't get posted online, one that unfolds in silence, in shadows, in secret. Because when you're chosen, you don't just carry purpose, you carry pressure. There are seasons where you wake up heavy and you don't know why. Nights when you cry for no reason. Moments when you feel like the ground beneath you is cracking open, and you're expected to keep smiling anyway. And while others are busy building image, she's busy surviving spiritual war. Because the enemy doesn't attack those who are empty. He attacks those who are full of potential. And she is. She doesn't feel strong, but she is. She doesn't look ready, but she is. She doesn't act like a warrior, but that's what she's becoming. God allows her to feel the tension, the friction, the weight, not to break her, but to build her. Because true strength doesn't come from applause. It comes from adversity. So He lets her face storms she didn't cause. He lets her fight battles no one applauds. He lets her wrestle in silence, so when the moment comes, she'll stand in power. Chosen women know what it's like to be misunderstood, to be overlooked, to be judged by people who have no idea what they're carrying. And that judgment, that silence, it's not an accident. It's part of the design. Because some assignments require isolation. Some anointings are too heavy to explain. Some callings are protected through hiding. And if you've ever felt like no one sees what you're going through, it's because they weren't meant to. God sees it. God knows it. God allowed it. And He's using it. Because before God releases you, He refines you. Before He elevates you, He crushes what's weak. Before He brings you into visibility, He tests you in invisibility. And that pressure, that fight, that exhaustion you carry, it's not the sign of failure. It's the evidence of formation. You are being shaped. You are being trained. You are being trusted. That's why you feel it deeper than others. That's why the burden won't lift. That's why you can't sleep through the nights that others rest easily in. It's because God is not doing something small in your life. He's doing something holy. But before He releases the oil, He presses the olive. Before He gives the platform, He builds the altar. And before He sends the woman, He strengthens the vessel. So if you feel like you're in a spiritual battle with no end, don't run, don't numb it, don't resent it. This is the second mark, and it always comes before the fire. But what comes next is where everything begins to shift. Because that pressure, that weight, that crushing, it doesn't stop at pain. It pushes you into the third mark, and that one is the breaking. The third mark of a chosen woman is this: she has been broken on purpose. Not because she failed, not because she sinned, not because she was weak, but because God decided she's ready to be rebuilt. And before God builds anything eternal, He breaks everything temporary. Her pride, her plans, her image, her control, everything she thought was secure, He shook. Everything she leaned on, He removed. Everything she thought would last, He let fall apart, not to punish her, to prepare her. Because the future He's building in her life can't be built on shaky ground. The identity she's stepping into can't be mixed with insecurity. The purpose He's unlocking requires total surrender, and total surrender only comes after total breaking. That's why everything changed. That's why the season turned. That's why the people left. That's why the prayers didn't work like before, because God wasn't fixing the old, He was replacing it. She doesn't talk much about that season, the one where she lost more than she could explain, the one where God felt distant, where her prayers felt hollow, where everything familiar fell away. But that season was sacred. It's where her flesh died. It's where her ego crumbled. It's where her true hunger was born. And that's the beauty of being chosen. You're not just called into ministry, you're called into transformation. And transformation isn't pretty. It's not staged. It's not easy to caption. It's ugly. It's quiet. It's lonely, but it's holy. Because when God breaks a woman, He doesn't leave her shattered. He reshapes her. He rebuilds her on truth. He recenters her on grace. He roots her in identity that hell can't shake. So if everything in your life feels like it's crumbling, don't panic. This is not the end. It's the rebuild. You're not being destroyed. You're being purified. God is stripping away what can't go with you into the next season. He's removing what's fake, what's weak, what's unstable, so He can pour something eternal into the foundation. And once He's broken you the right way, He does something unexpected. He hides you. Not because you're not ready, but because the world isn't. And that's the fourth mark, one that most women resist, but the most powerful ones embrace. The fourth mark of a chosen woman is this: she has been hidden, not rejected, not overlooked, not forgotten, hidden, set aside, tucked away, covered by the hand of God, not because she wasn't worthy, but because she was too valuable to be exposed too soon. See, we live in a world that celebrates visibility. The more eyes, the better. The more attention, the louder the applause. But God doesn't develop his daughters under spotlights. He develops them in silence, in obscurity, in the slow places, in the hidden rooms where no one claps, no one sees, and no one validates. That's where he whispers the assignment. That's where he heals the wounds. That's where he pours the oil. Because if you get seen before you're ready, the weight of visibility will crush what God is still forming. And chosen women, they don't chase stages. They don't chase affirmation. They learn to be content in the shadows because they know who's with them there. She's been hidden in seasons where she felt invisible, hidden in friendships where she gave more than she got, hidden in ministries that didn't see her worth, hidden in homes where no one noticed her sacrifice, hidden in jobs where her gift was buried under survival, and it hurt. Because she knew there was more in her. She knew there was something bigger, but every door stayed shut. Every platform stayed out of reach. Every opportunity passed her by. But here's the mystery of God's training ground. Sometimes his greatest no is actually his deepest yes. Sometimes the delay is not denial, it's protection. God hides what he's preparing. He hides what he's refining. He hides what the enemy wants to corrupt too soon. And he hides what he loves, just like Moses in a basket, just like David in the field, just like Mary in a quiet town, just like Jesus in the tomb, hidden, not forgotten, covered, not abandoned, preserved for purpose. So if you've been hidden, don't despise it. You're not behind. You're not wasting time. You're not being punished. You're being trusted. Because once you're rooted in the secret place, no storm in the public place can move you. But make no mistake, the hiding won't last forever. When the time is right, God brings you out. But before that moment comes, there's something else you must face. Something every chosen woman walks through. It's not glamorous. It's not quick. It's not easy. It's rejection. And that's the next mark. The fifth mark of a chosen woman is this. She has been rejected over and over again. Not just once, not just by strangers, but by people she trusted, by places she loved, by rooms she thought were hers. And it didn't make sense. She gave her best. She showed up with integrity. She served when no one else would. She loved past the point of reason. And still, they walked away. Doors closed. Voices silenced, opportunities disappeared, and she began to ask the same question many chosen ones do. What did I do wrong? But rejection isn't always a reflection of your failure. Sometimes it's confirmation of your assignment. Because rejection doesn't always come to push you down. Sometimes it comes to push you out of comfort, out of compromise, out of places you were never meant to settle. God will allow rejection to reroute you. Because if they had accepted you, you might have stayed where you didn't belong. If they had affirmed you, you might have missed who you really are. So he lets the door shut. He lets the silence fall. He lets the invitation pass you by, not to hurt you, but to guide you. Every no is a redirect. Every loss is a release. Every betrayal is a boundary. And here's the truth. God will protect you through rejection. He will close doors to protect your oil. He will dry up wells to deepen your hunger. He will pull you out of circles that dilute your fire. Because chosen women can't afford to be planted in shallow soil, so he removes you, even when it hurts, even when you beg to stay, even when you don't understand. And yes, it will sting, it will cut, it will leave marks, but those marks, they'll become maps. They'll point to the places God never meant for you to stay. They'll remind you where you found him more clearly, after the door closed, because some of your greatest encounters with God will come after someone else shuts you out. That's the kind of woman he's building. One who doesn't crumble under rejection, but rises through it. One who doesn't beg to be included, but stands firm in being set apart. One who doesn't fold when denied, but becomes even more dangerous in the wilderness. So if you've faced rejection, if you've been pushed out, if you've been misunderstood, silenced, or excluded, it doesn't mean you're disqualified. It means you're being redirected. But now comes the harder part. What happens when the world offers you another way, a shortcut, a compromise, a platform without the process? That's where the sixth mark is born. And only the deeply rooted can say no. The sixth mark of a chosen woman is this: she cannot compromise, no matter how much it costs. It's not just that she won't, it's that she can't. Her spirit won't let her. Something inside resists shortcuts. Something in her soul cringes at counterfeit paths. She could take the easy route. She could say what they want to hear. She could pretend to be what they prefer. But the moment she tries, she feels it. The dissonance, the weight, the spiritual nausea. Because when you're chosen, there are some things you just can't do anymore. Not because you're better, but because you're different. God has set a standard in you, and that standard doesn't bend with culture. It doesn't loosen to fit in. It doesn't shift to gain acceptance. You feel it in conversations. When others joke about what grieves your spirit, when others normalize what you're convicted by, when others cheer for what you're called to walk away from, it's not that you're judging. It's that you don't belong there anymore. And that tension, it's real. Because part of you wants to blend in. You want to stay connected. You don't want to seem too deep, too holy, too much. But there's a fire inside you now, and it won't let you go back. The Holy Spirit has marked you, and that mark doesn't fade just because you miss the old rooms. There's a cost to being consecrated. You'll lose invitations. You'll lose relationships. You'll lose the right to explain yourself to people who no longer understand you. But in that loss, you gain clarity. You gain power. You gain purity. And purity is power. Chosen women don't chase relevance. They chase righteousness. They don't lower their convictions to gain influence. They raise their standards to guard what's sacred. They don't use grace as an excuse to stay in bondage. They use grace as fuel to walk in freedom. And yes, it gets lonely. Yes, it gets misunderstood. Yes, it costs. But that cost is part of the call, because the woman God is raising up isn't meant to blend in. She's meant to blaze a trail, and trailblazers don't walk familiar roads. They forge new ones. So if you feel like you're losing people, if you feel like you're drifting from the crowd, if you feel like your standards are making you stand alone, you're not losing your place. You're stepping into it. God is separating you now, so that when the moment comes, you won't flinch when compromise knocks. You'll recognize it for what it is: a test, a trap, a counterfeit offering, and you'll say no. Because the next mark, the final one, is reserved for those who are willing to wait, not passively, but faithfully. Because while others are running ahead, the chosen woman knows some roads can't be rushed. The seventh mark of a chosen woman is this: she refuses to take shortcuts. Not because there aren't any, not because the opportunity doesn't present itself, but because something in her spirit says, not this way. See, the world moves fast. It rewards speed. It praises quick success, instant fame, overnight platforms, but she's not interested in what comes quickly. She's interested in what lasts. And anything that lasts takes time. That's why she doesn't chase every open door. She doesn't step through just because it's available. She waits, she watches, she prays, because she knows a good thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. She doesn't want what her character can't carry. She doesn't want exposure that her foundation can't hold. She doesn't want elevation that skips over preparation. And so, while others sprint, she walks, slow, quiet, obedient. And the world calls her late, but heaven calls her wise, because shortcuts always come with strings. And the chosen woman has learned quick can be dangerous, easy can be empty. Fame without fire is fatal. She doesn't need applause. She needs anointing. She doesn't need attention. She needs authority. And both come from one thing, process. So she submits to the slow, to the stretching, to the shaping, to the silence that makes no sense until it does. She's been tempted to rush, tempted to compromise, tempted to say, I've waited long enough, let me grab what I can now. But she doesn't, because she knows God's timing is not punishment, it's protection. What He's preparing in her can't be microwaved. It must be marinated in obedience, sealed in trust, tested in private. That's why she stays, even when it feels like nothing is moving, even when everyone else is making it, even when her prayers seem unanswered. She stays, she obeys, she surrenders, because shortcuts might offer platforms, but only the slow road produces oil, and oil is what she's after. Not attention, not status, not speed. She wants weight, she wants depth, she wants God. And the ones who want God more than they want glory are the ones He trusts with both. So if you feel behind, don't rush. You're not behind. You're being rooted, and roots take time. But once they go deep, nothing can shake what God builds on them. That's why she's not afraid to wait. Even if it means being hidden, even if it means being misunderstood, even if it means walking alone, because waiting isn't weakness, it's worship. And what happens in the waiting? It leads to the deepest mark of all, not what she does in public, but what she learns in private. The seventh mark of a chosen woman is this: she refuses to take shortcuts. Not because there aren't any, not because the opportunity doesn't present itself, but because something in her spirit says, not this way. See, the world moves fast. It rewards speed. It praises quick success, instant fame, overnight platforms. But she's not interested in what comes quickly. She's interested in what lasts. And anything that lasts takes time. That's why she doesn't chase every open door. She doesn't step through just because it's available. She waits. She watches, she prays, because she knows a good thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. She doesn't want what her character can't carry. She doesn't want exposure that her foundation can't hold. She doesn't want elevation that skips over preparation. And so, while others sprint, she walks, slow, quiet, obedient. And the world calls her late, but heaven calls her wise. Because shortcuts always come with strings, and the chosen woman has learned quick can be dangerous, easy can be empty. Fame without fire is fatal. She doesn't need applause. She needs anointing. She doesn't need attention. She needs authority. And both come from one thing, process. So she submits to the slow, to the stretching, to the shaping, to the silence that makes no sense until it does. She's been tempted to rush, tempted to compromise, tempted to say, I've waited long enough, let me grab what I can now. But she doesn't, because she knows God's timing is not punishment, it's protection. What he's preparing in her can't be microwaved. It must be marinated in obedience, sealed in trust, tested in private. That's why she stays. Even when it feels like nothing is moving, even when everyone else is making it, even when her prayers seem unanswered, she stays, she obeys, she surrenders, because shortcuts might offer platforms, but only the slow road produces oil, and oil is what she's after, not attention, not status, not speed. She wants weight, she wants depth, she wants God. And the ones who want God more than they want glory are the ones he trusts with both. So if you feel behind, don't rush. You're not behind. You're being rooted, and roots take time. But once they go deep, nothing can shake what God builds on them. That's why she's not afraid to wait. Even if it means being hidden, even if it means being misunderstood, even if it means walking alone. Because waiting isn't weakness, it's worship. And what happens in the waiting? It leads to the deepest mark of all. Not what she does in public, but what she learns in private. You've been hidden. You've been crushed. You've been stretched. You've been rebuilt, not to sit in silence forever, but to rise in your appointed time. And that time is now. Because the final mark of a chosen woman isn't just what she carries, it's what she releases. There comes a moment when the silence lifts, when the hiding ends, when the weight you've been carrying becomes a weapon for someone else's freedom. And that moment isn't about you anymore. It's about them, the ones watching, the ones waiting, the ones wondering, is there a woman who understands what I'm going through? Yes, there is. It's you. Because everything you've walked through, every rejection, every crushing, every hour spent in hidden obedience was never just about your growth. It was about your assignment. You were never meant to just survive. You were meant to be sent. And the world is starving for women like you. Not just women with influence, but women with oil. Not just women who can speak, but women who have bled and believed. Not just women with vision, but women with depth, fire, and scars that shine like altars. They need your voice. They need your story. They need the sound you carry when you walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without saying a word. They need the quiet confidence of a woman who has been with God, who didn't skip the process, who didn't take the shortcut, who didn't sell her soul for spotlight, who waited while the world ran past her and now walks with the weight of glory. So don't shrink, don't second guess, don't apologize for your difference. You were never called to blend in. You were born to blaze, not through arrogance, not through perfection, but through holy surrender. Because when a chosen woman rises, hell trembles, chains break, generations shift. Not because she's loud, but because she's clear. She knows who she is. She knows who sent her, and she knows why she had to go through every step of the wilderness. So now, woman of God, step out, not to be seen, but to set others free. You carry answers. You carry truth. You carry heaven's echo in a world filled with noise. Let them feel it. Let them see what God can do with someone who said yes in the silence. Because you are not just chosen. You are released.